Hey everybody, welcome back to Author Eke. Today I have Steve Urszenyi. So hope I didn't mess that up too bad. And he has, I think his first book out, and it's done amazing, which means that he is a very good writer and a very good storyteller, and has things he wants to tell that people are interested in reading about. So Steve, go ahead, take it over and introduce yourself to the Author Eke crowd.
Sure. First of all, Travis, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here. I've watched a few episodes and always good to hear the conversation. So nice to be part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Perfect Shot is my first. It's my first published work. I've been dabbling in writing all my life, like a lot of people. I even tried to get serious about it, close to 30 years ago, and hit a wall. So took it no further. At the time, young family, working hard, paying a mortgage. So I thought,
Priorities.
I don't know what I'm doing. I might as well give it up for now. So I did. That was in the mid '90s, and then about 10 years ago, 15 years ago now, I started to dabble again, kind of in screenwriting when I knew some people running a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically said to me the best advice, or gave me the best advice I ever got up to that time, and even really up to this day, which was, if you want to write, just write. So then I started to just sit down and write. I'm not a plotter, I'm a pantser. And
Me too.
yeah, so back 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of advice on the internet about, everything I came across was in bookstores, and basically all the titles were how to outline your story. And if you're not outlining, you're not writing, and you can't write if you don't plot, and all this stuff. So that discouraged me. Whereas when I got the advice to just write, that gave me license to just sit down, scribble away. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through a lot of what didn't work in terms of didn't find a voice, didn't find a character. And then one day Alex came along. I didn't recognize her at first, and I kind of skipped past her and tried some other stuff. But then about a year or two after that, I stumbled onto the character of Alex, and lo and behold, finished my first full novel manuscript in 2018, just in time for Thriller Fest.
Excellent. So how long did it take you to write it once you figured out the character?
Well, it was from the time I started that story, and again, no intent other than to sit down and write.
Right.
And it was about 2 or 3 years, and I was about midway through a manuscript, because I was still working shift work. I was still a paramedic on the road, still working shift work, and I wasn't particularly serious yet about writing. It was just kind of a hobby still.
Yep.
So that took me 2 or 3 years to get about half a manuscript done, half a full-length manuscript done.
Okay.
And then about, like I said, in around 2017, I read it, and I thought, this is pretty good, Steve. Like, maybe you should try to finish something.
Yeah.
So I made a decision to finish it, but then what gave me the drive to actually complete it was I heard about this conference called Thriller Fest in New York every year. And more specifically, I heard that there was something called Pitch Fest, this speed dating with agents kind of thing. And I knew that if I wanted to get it published in the traditional space, I needed an agent. So I set my goal in the fall of 2017 to have a finished manuscript before Thriller Fest, which at that time was July 2018.
Okay.
So really, it was the first half I wrote in 2 or 3 years, and then the second half I wrote in about 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Once you find your groove.
Exactly. And then it still took me to, we actually went out on submission with that manuscript. That was the first Alex Martel thriller. It wasn't Perfect Shot. It was a forerunner. And we went on submission with that a year and a half after I got my agent. So 2.5 years after my first Thriller Fest.
Oh, wow.
And or thereabouts. And the reason was, so we went out on submission, but we went on submission the week the pandemic shut down New York.
So there was basically null and void.
Yeah. So
not much to do.
We pulled that one back, and I was already writing Perfect Shot. And my agent said to me, you know what, just keep writing that second one. It wasn't called Perfect Shot at the time, but keep writing that second one. We'll see where it goes. And then we'll go out with submission probably with that one, on submission with that one, which is what we did. And
so talk to us about Perfect Shot, because it's gotten some fantastic reviews.
Yeah,
anybody that watches you or anybody in the thriller space.
Well, I'm honestly thrilled. Perfect Shot now, I just found out on Friday 2 additional award nominations. So it's already been nominated. It's a finalist for the International Thriller Writers Best First Novel Award.
Excellent.
And then Friday,
good luck.
Thank you. And Friday I found out that it's been shortlisted for the Rakuten Kobo Emerging Writer Award. So basically a Best First Novel Award from Rakuten Kobo.
Okay.
Well, Kobo is an e-reader company. It's a Canadian company. And
yes.
So I don't know if everybody knows about Kobo. And then the other one is the Crime Writers of Canada Best First Novel Award, Best Crime First Novel Award, something like that. So I'm thrilled. So Perfect Shot is the story of Alex Martel, who is a special agent, FBI special agent on loan to Interpol. And her backstory is she was an Army combat medic turned sniper who eventually finds her way to the FBI, finds her way to Interpol in Europe. And as events evolve, it ends up being that she's chasing down a stolen nuclear bomb across Europe. And she teams up with a CIA agent by the name, of course, we know CIA doesn't have agents. They're called intelligence officers, operations officers. But for fictional purposes, we'll call CIA agent Caleb Copeland.
Well, that's what they call James Bond was an agent. And everybody, the CIA folks he meets in the movies are agents.
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends now in the CIA, past and present CIA, or past members and current members, and they get on my case a little bit, as they should, about proper titles. So, and I can understand that as a paramedic. I can't tell you the number of times I've been called an ambulance driver in my career.
Yeah,
and I used to correct people pretty quickly, so I get that. But anyway, CIA agent Caleb Copeland. He wants to recruit Alex for his own special team, and the two of them have a back and forth as they travel across Europe hunting down the nuclear bomb. So it's a fun story.
Yep.
I think I stumbled on a really good character with Alex. I really enjoy writing her. The reception's been great to her, and Caleb really seems to mesh well with her. People really have taken to the dynamic of the pair of them together. So that's okay. That's pretty satisfying.
So is there going to be a second one? Is it a series or is it an individual?
It's a series. So Perfect Shot is the first in the series. And the second one, I literally just handed the copy edits in on it on Thursday, this past Thursday. I'm not sure when this is going to broadcast, but we're in end of April right now. So Out in the Cold is the second book in the series, the Special Agent Alexander Martel series, and that comes out on November 12th.
Well, excellent. Yeah, this will air probably in June sometime. We're going to Europe for a week when you're talking. So I guess now I'm going to be looking for nuclear bombs.
Hopefully there won't be any of those.
Hopefully not.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing slinging around or anything. That'd be good. That'd be even better vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
So what inspired you to write this one? All of a sudden, just the idea pop in your head and you said, oh, there's a character. I can work with this.
Yeah, and because of the way I write, which is I don't plot, I don't outline. I really start with two things: the idea of a character. I mean, in this case, it's Alex. But when I write in general, if I'm trying to come up with a new story, I come up with two things: a character, not even fully formed, just male, female, age-ish, maybe what they do for a living and what they're up to. So a character and a scenario or a scene, or really it's a location. It's not even a scenario or a scene, it's a location. Whether they're in a bar, whether they're on a street, whether it's dark or light or raining.
Right.
So I start from that premise. And in general, when I've been writing, when I sat down to write, I usually started with a male character. And I enjoyed it, but what invariably happened was that character always had a Humphrey Bogart-esque voice to it. It was always kind of darker, gumshoe, American noir characters.
Right.
Which were great, but I wasn't just finding my voice in those characters. And then one day I started to write, it was a screenplay. And the backstory was Christmas in Sarajevo during the siege of Sarajevo during the war, the outbreak of the war in Bosnia, the Bosnian War, and the siege of Sarajevo.
Right.
So that was the backstory in my head. I had these two little kids at Christmas in Sarajevo before their parents are killed by Serb snipers in Bosnia. It was a war in Sarajevo. So very unhappy beginning to the story, but that was a story I envisioned, because what I set up was, and I shouldn't give too much away because I know I'm going to bring this will become a new Alex Martel story down the road. But it became the first Alex Martel story. And when I brought Alex into that story as an investigator, I realized I had my character and my voice. And
wow, okay.
I was able to write her. And then things I've done in my career, as you know, I'm a paramedic and a tactical paramedic. So I work with police tactical teams, the SWAT team, public order units, so the riot squad, the CBRNE, which is chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosives response team, etc. So while I work with tactical teams, I'm not an armed officer. So I would work alongside these guys. So, I would do SWAT calls. I'd go in on a stack through the door with the battering ram, or I'd sit back in the operations center. But I got to participate in a lot of high-level tactical operations and high-level security operations, whether it was G8, G20, presidential summits, the North American Leadership Summit, that type of thing. So I got to see the behind-the-scenes activities quite a bit. And through that came in contact with a lot of our own intelligence apparatus, both through the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, but also through CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. And that got me really excited about the background to these events. And as a paramedic, I've always liked, one of my favorite things about being a paramedic isn't just doing the lights and siren thing, which I love driving lights and siren.
Right.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly.
But I love being on the inside of a situation. So while the news reports something and, people at home get to watch a news story after the fact, I love being there on the ground as things are unfolding, and usually completely differently than the news is reporting it anyway.
Oh, of course.
So it was always exciting to me to be on the ground, boots on the ground in an evolving story. And so it was that kind of feeling and that mindset that I brought to Alex and the cast of characters in Perfect Shot in the series. So if you ask me what inspired me, it's very much that sense of action and excitement that I crave and love, and wanting to write and find a good voice through a character, which turned out to be Alex and Caleb. So
yes, it's amazing. A lot of male writers write female characters.
I think
it's interesting.
I think it's getting more common for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's funny because I get asked that question almost every interview about why I chose to write a female character. And I always tell a version of the story that I didn't really choose to write Alex. Alex kind of chose to be written, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's the same. It's funny though. You write a female character, and I think no one questions. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not sure if when a woman writes a male protagonist, if she gets as many questions about why she chose to write about a male protagonist as a man gets when he writes a female protagonist. And I think that's just natural. It's an interesting question. It's a natural question, but
yeah, it's interesting. We're both have the same writing style. So I've just finished my new novel's coming out tomorrow, May 1st, 104. So I didn't outline it, but what I did do is I put what I wanted to put in it, like what aircraft, what weapons, what boom, 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 boom. Right. So I made sure that I want to hit everything, about World War I. And then I wrote a main character with no characteristics. None. Other than he's a man, married, has a child. That's it. That's all you know about him. And people say, Travis, who is he? I go, I don't know. I don't want to know. I can't tell you. Right hand, left hand, brown eyes, hair, no hair, tall, skinny, overweight.
And you carried that through the story?
I did.
Wow.
It is. It's the main character.
That's almost hard to do. And it's interesting because it gives the reader the responsibility and the fun of completely imbuing that character with whatever they see.
Yeah, he's an unknown soldier in World War I.
Oh, that's interesting. Interesting angle.
And the story is told through his diary by a father and son who are estranged, and find the diary and then retrace his footsteps and bond the son-father relationship back by retracing, somebody that's been long gone, but he, from the battlefields of France to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery.
I've seen the ads that are on
Yeah,
your website for that.
yeah,
I do want to pick that up and read it because it sounds like an interesting story, and I love this angle that you found
yeah,
for it as well.
yeah. I don't know if I could outline. I mean, I've never. I'm not good at taking notes. By the time I take notes, I start doodling.
Yeah.
Right. I have a palm tree on a beach by the time that I'm. So I have to, But I'm like you. Now when you write? Do you set a goal of words? You set a chapter? You set a page counter? You say, I have a thought. I got to get this thought out from the beginning to the fruition of that thought.
In terms of daily activity,
Yeah.
yeah. So I literally no, I have no. Well, I won't say never. It's very rare that I have an objective for the day or for the writing session.
Okay.
Sometimes I will because I'm in the middle of a scene and I haven't finished it yet,
Mm-hmm.
or because I'm having problems with a scene and I know I've got to solve an issue in the scene. Or so sometimes those things come up and you've got to deal with it. But on a day-to-day basis, when I'm unfolding a new story,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm doing when I sit down on the keyboard. But as far as word count goes, I usually have, now I'm under contract,
Yeah.
manuscript done by a certain date.
Yeah. Yes.
So I write in Scrivener. So I plug in, my target date of completion along with the target word count. And that
Mm-hmm.
basically then tells me, every day you have to write 635 words today, or then, or if I haven't written in a while.
I've never even heard of that Scrivener.
Scrivener?
I mean, I've never even heard of it.
Oh, I first encountered Scrivener maybe 10 years or more ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't figure out how to use it. So I gave it up. And then after I wrote my first manuscript, I heard people talking about using Scrivener. So that's what I use now. And I wrote Perfect Shot and Out in the Cold, both with Scrivener. And the next one that I'm working on now, also I'm using Scrivener. So Scrivener it's a word processing
Mm-hmm.
app, has a
Right.
functionality, but it also has some very high level outlining and stuff, features I never use. So
Mm-hmm.
you can drop sort of recipe cards, cue cards, right?
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so people use cue cards and make notes, right? And they put them all over their desk.
Yes.
Same
Yes.
idea. So you can do that. You can drag them around and it'll drag pieces around in your manuscript. So you can write in chunks. Basically, you write a scene
Mm-hmm.
and then you start it's called a document, but you start a new document in the project that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
You start a new document, and each of those documents becomes a scene contained within a folder, which is a chapter. So in effect, what happens is if you decide the scene you wrote here would work better over there, you
Mm-hmm.
literally could just drag it. You drag it up and down, not sideways.
Yeah.
Drag it up or down and tuck it in wherever you want, and it's all reformatted. And then
Check that out.
you compile it and output it to Word. So when I submit my manuscript, I submit it in Word, but when I'm writing it,
Scrivener.
yeah, it's all Scrivener until I get.
I do Word. But that's interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out.
The biggest problem, I mean, one of the things that drives me crazy in Word is if I move something in a later chapter, then I have to renumber all the chapters manually. Now, is it a big deal? No, it's 15 minutes of my time, but it's a bit of a pain in the neck. That's all. Whereas
Right.
if you drag a chapter or a scene
Mm-hmm.
anywhere,
It'll renumber.
when it outputs it renumbers it for you. So, I mean, I'm not a power user. I know people who are way better at using it than I am, but it gets my manuscript done and it allows me to output it to Word into a proper manuscript format. So I've been pretty happy about it. Anyway, so that's what I use.
I'll check that out.
And it has in the top window, it has this thing which can be a blessing or a curse, depends on how you look at it, which tells you what your total is. So it might say, 37,000 of 100,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
And then beside it, it'll say, and today you've written, 24 of 800 words that you need to write today.
You're like, oh man,
so there's a bit of a running word count. So I try to work to if I know, especially if I'm under a time crunch early on, I can be a little more flexible. But as I get closer to that deadline, I have to crack down and put out more words a day. But my average word count is probably average on a good day. I'm not saying every day I do this, but towards the end, I'm up there and beyond. But I say 600 to 800 words is a pretty decent writing day for me.
Okay.
And a good day for me is anywhere north of 1,100 words or so. But
Okay.
I've had days close to 2,000 words.
Oh yeah. Some days I'll just write. It just feels right. But
Yeah,
I'll set a date when I want the book done,
yeah,
and I'll backward plan for that.
yeah.
But I self-published this book, so I pretty much at lead what I want to be able to do with it.
Well, before I was using Scrivener, so in the first book manuscript I wrote, I had a spreadsheet, and every day I wrote in my word count at the end of my writing session. So that calculated for me how many words I had left and what the average. So I still use that. I still use that process, but I did it with Excel. Whereas now,
just use Scrivener.
Yeah, now it's automated in Scrivener, and like I said, it'd be a blessing or a curse, depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, like, oh yay! Or some days you're like, I'll get a beer, and some days I can't have a beer.
Yeah. Well, and when I was coming down to the end of Out in the Cold, I was shouldn't say this, but I was late with the manuscript. I had talked to the editor, let them know where I was at the time. My editor was her name was Sarah, so I let Sarah know where I was. So extension was not an issue, but I even still coming up to that deadline. There were days I was cracking out 4,000 or 5,000 words a day in the last week.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
that'll hurt your head.
Those were long days.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I think most I've done in one day maybe 2,000-3,000.
That's still
it just
a lot.
Depends. Yeah, it depends. I set a goal.
Yeah, I mean, the internet is a nightmare, I think, at times, because you see what other people are doing, and I wrote. Today I wrote 1,700 words on my coffee break, and tonight I'm going to write another 75,000 words. And, so it can be a little depressing if you believe all that. But the bottom line is, I think people who've written full manuscripts, yourself, me, others, they get it. But for any first timers out there, don't pressure yourself with that. The main idea, the biggest thing a new writer can do is just to write every day, sit down and write. Yep. And the second piece of that is give yourself to, some other great advice I heard. Give yourself permission to write crap or write, shit.
Yeah.
Because the time you paint something, it's not going to be a Michelangelo masterpiece or a Da Vinci. It's
just get through it.
Yeah.
Get it done and go back.
Yeah, get it done and go back, and even give yourself permission to throw it all out.
Yeah.
Right. Writing is just about it's a muscle like any other. I mean, obviously your brain's not a muscle, but you've got to exercise your brain to get in that the shape for writing and understand. Yeah. And as that muscle takes shape, just like any muscle for a sport or a skill, it gets better over time and with practice. And you don't get better as a hockey player by thinking about becoming a hockey player. You got to get out there and
you got to do it.
Pull puck.
Yeah, you got to write.
I'm using a Canadian reference there for all.
That's right. Right, that's fine. Write a novella or write a short story, but let the creative juices flow, and then for me, when I do research, that always kicks off. Oh, this would be a good start of a book, or I could put this in another book.
Yeah,
because you're doing so much, and I have learned so much by writing. Things that I wouldn't have
because the research
thought about exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Because you have to make even a fiction thriller, espionage, cloak and dagger, right? You've got to make it where that stuff is believable, or it becomes science fiction. And somebody didn't buy a book to read science fiction in a thriller; they want fiction.
Yeah,
right? It's believable.
Yeah, and my, yes, I've kind of operated in some of those circles peripheral to what my story's about.
Right.
But I'm not an expert in intelligence. I'm not an expert in long range precision shooting. I'm not an expert in all things law enforcement.
Yeah.
Or even nuclear, despite my title. So there was a lot of research, and even the guns, the characteristics about specific handguns. I'm a shooter. I've been a shooter all my life.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I know all the ins and outs of a Makarov, an AK-47 versus 74 versus AKM versus go on and on. Not to mention the ballistics that everyone in the thriller world. If you're writing in that space, people want you to get it right.
Yeah, what's different to an AKS and AK-47 is the stock.
Yeah,
one's airborne, one's not. Right? It's but people realize that.
Yeah,
people realize that. I have a scene in my new book where, he's taking aim and he wants to take out a sniper, and you take a breath, hold it, let it out, take another breath, hold it, pop, squeeze the trigger. And my wife was reading the book. She says I was doing it. She goes, I'm touching myself.
Yeah.
do what you put on the paper. I was like,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And my my books, again, you were in World War One, so I imagine you had to do a lot of reading
Oh yeah,
to make sure you
yes,
got the locations, battlefield locations, battles, all that stuff.
everything,
And
weapons, gear, everything.
yeah, and when I wrote Perfect Shot, it's an international thriller, so it takes places in all these locales:
Mm-hmm.
London,
Mm-hmm.
Paris, in Turkey, etc. And at that time, I had either not ever been to those places or I'd been there briefly, not
Right,
study the streets.
right.
So it was a lot of research on Google Earth, Google Map,
Oh yeah.
View.
You take a left here. What's the restaurant here? Like the
Yeah,
first of my first book, Flames of Deception. It takes place in Russia.
yeah,
So all these places. What hotels? What could you see if you when you were sitting outside? What did you see?
yeah.
Or how was the entrance? Or
Well, even
you got to do that.
moon charts. We're not moon
Yeah.
charts necessarily, but if I'm saying the story took place, so out in the cold starts off, it's basically, let's call it September. And I don't know if I actually say September, but in my mind, the opening scene in
Yeah.
September, and they're on the Mediterranean. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I got, because of what evolves in the story, I got to know a little bit about the moonlight lit sky. I've
Yeah.
been there, I've seen it,
Right.
I've driven at
Right.
night, but what's the water temperature like versus other times a year? What's the
Yes.
wind and the air like at night on a September
Yep.
evening on the Mediterranean? So you've got to do those little bits of research. It might be a sentence or a line or two in your story, but you
Yep.
got to get it right, and that's
Yeah.
research. And like you, I love it, and you can disappear down that rabbit hole
Oh,
pretty quickly.
I
But
I was looking at weather charts and moon phases from 1918. Because I've said if it's a full moon, it's a full moon that day.
yeah,
Uh, or when I was okay, well, what trees line the Champs Elysees, right? They're plant trees. They're called planet trees, I think was called, right?
yeah, or
Plantain trees,
plane trees.
plane trees. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
lines it. So I
yeah,
had to make sure, okay, when do they drop their leaves? And so because I wanted to make that accurate, or
yeah. You're
when
like
was different equipment. Yeah, it just has to be accurate,
it was, and it was.
meticulous.
Even there was a scene in Perfect Shot where one of the bad guys is sitting in a bar in the Ritz Hotel in Paris, Bar
Mm-hmm.
Vendome, and I've been there and I sat there. I wrote the
Yeah,
scene before that.
right.
I kind of scoped out the bar on
Mm-hmm.
Google before ever getting there, so I wrote it from Google. But then when I went there and I sat where he sat,
Yeah,
looked around, I saw there was a tree. And I have
yeah,
a picture of it, but I didn't know what kind of tree it was. And it was a kind of a prominent feature. So
yeah.
I think finally in the story, maybe I didn't use it, but I researched, I had to find out what's that tree.
You've seen it.
Because if I happen to actually name the tree and I call it an olive tree when it's a linden tree or whatever,
Yeah,
someone's going to call me out.
somebody's gonna find that. Somebody's gonna find. Oh, definitely, definitely. So, are you working on a third one now? I mean, is there something in your head that? And how? So, are these like a yearly, every 18-month release type schedule?
Yeah, so at the moment it's a yearly, every 12 months. Now, technically, so I was given a 2-book deal for Perfect Shot and Out in the
Mm-hmm.
Cold.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm writing book 3 on spec, shall we say, in the hopes that my publisher will turn around and offer a contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pending. I would say, hopefully in the next month or two we'll know, and I'm pretty confident they will, but anything
Mm-hmm.
could happen.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm
Right.
writing book 3 as if I were still under contract
Well,
with my publisher.
because you want to get the book out. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I got to get it in, whether that's a contract or not. If we sign tomorrow and they say to keep our schedule, it has to be in next week. Is it ready? I better
You got to have it ready.
yeah. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
writing as if they're, and even if not, I'm hopeful that, like I said, I don't expect the publisher won't re-sign me to another couple of books at least.
Yeah.
But say they don't, I would like to keep the series alive. So I certainly would be looking for a publisher to work with to do that and make it happen again. So I have to have a manuscript.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't say, oh, well, I took the last 9 months off because I didn't have a contract. You got to keep writing. So
Right. You
in
have to
my
write.
mind, I'm writing book 3 now. And actually the publisher asked for a synopsis and my ideas for book 3 and 4 in the series. So
That's a good sign.
even though I'm a pantser, you can't turn around to the publisher and say, well, I'm a pantser. I have no idea what I'm doing till I sit down and write.
Right. You got to have a synopsis.
Yeah.
And I created one.
Came up with a couple of story
1 4.
ideas for 3 and 4. Now, they've already been stories, the book 3, that was already in my head. Again, not plotted or outlined, but I kind of knew where I wanted to set that next story and kind of roughly what it was about, even if I didn't know all the events or sequence. I knew what I wanted to write about, what the main thrust of the story is. So it was just a germ of an idea. So I put that into a synopsis, and actually, I'm going to actually try to write as closely to that synopsis as I can. Now, obviously, as I write, things will take off.
Don't change. Yeah.
I'll go with it. But so I have a synopsis for 3 and 4 now. And
excellent.
The idea 4 is something I wanted to do. It's been something I've wanted to do for a while now, and something that's been germinating in the series that is a natural extension to the series where we're going. So that should be pretty exciting.
Excellent. Well, Steve, it's been a pleasure having you on Author Ecke. So how can everybody find you and your books? And just because, again, folks, go out and just check. The reviews have been amazing.
Yep. Well, thank you. So both books are available almost anywhere you buy books. So online at Amazon or Barnes and Noble or, Books A Million or anywhere they can buy books, the local indie bookstore. Order it online. Out in the Cold is available for pre-order now as well through any of those options. I can be found at steveurszeney.com. So first name, last name.com.
Okay.
There's also a contact form there. So if anybody wants to shoot me an email or a message, correct me on a ballistic fact that I might have mucked up.
Watch out.
Then they're free to do that. But I do love hearing from readers. So
me too.
.com.
Excellent.
And then of course Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all that. So
excellent. Well, I wish you more success with this perfect shot, and then even more success with your next endeavor and the 3rd and 4th.
Well, thank you, Travis. And like I said, I really look forward to your book coming out. I want to give that a shot as well. And
well, thank you.
Good luck with that as well.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Bye.